Moving on to our other key focus, Israel has designated 6 Palestinian human rights groups as terrorist organizations, a move that was swiftly condemned by Palestine, United Nations and the international community. The new designations casting a shadow on the Prime Minister Bennett's government at home and the future of the Abraham Accords in West Asia. The 6 groups include the Union of Palestinian Women's Committees, Adamir, Bisan Center for Research and Development, Al-Haq, Defense for Children International, Palestine, and the Union of Agricultural Work Committees. Now, Israel says that they have links to terror organizations. In fact, it calls them a cover for the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, a militant group blacklisted by several Western governments. Israel's Defense Ministry alleges that the groups use EU funding as a central source for the financing of the PFLP's activities. The Defense Minister Benny Gantz even called on the government to stop financing them. And in the latest, Israeli ministers are slamming Benny Gantz for the move. Reportedly, he did not even inform Prime Minister Bennett about his plan. In a statement, Benny Gantz, however, clarified that such procedures do not require informing the Prime Minister in advance. But Benny Gantz said that he would be willing to present evidence to the Security Cabinet. The Israeli move was met with swift outrage. The Palestinian government and human rights groups called them out. The United States also said that they would be engaging with Israel on this, even though they admitted that Israel informed them about it in advance. But the move appears to have caught the United States and Europe off guard. It could even force them to pick a side in an age-old conflict. However, the most important issue in focus remains the Abraham Accords. Last year, winds of change were blowing in West Asia. However, the most important issue in focus remains those agreements last year. And Israel made new friends following that as well. Arab ones at that, the UAE, Bahrain, Sudan and Morocco. Normalization was the word on the streets, and the peace deals were being called a game changer in the region. A year later, the economic benefits have come quickly, but the Abraham Accords came with the promise of peace. For years, West Asian consensus was that any normalization must be preceded by an Israeli-Palestinian peace agreement. The Abraham Accords took that formula and turned it around, but the recent moves by Israel could even leave its new friends wary. The Arab world has always batted for the Palestinian cause, but the normalizations put that in jeopardy. So the country that jumped in to take advantage was Iran. The supreme leader, Khamenei, is urging the Arab states to reverse normalization deals, calling it an act against Muslim unity in the region.
Some governments have unfortunately made errors, have made big errors, and have sinned in normalizing their relations with the usurping and oppressive Zionist regime. It's an act against Islamic unity. They must return from this path and make up for this big mistake.
Iran even ended up threatening the Jewish state after reports that Israel has approved a budget of $1.5 billion. Apparently, this budget will be used for a potential strike against Iran's nuclear program. Tehran hit back, saying it could inflict damage worth trillions on Israel, a threatening response amid an escalating conflict. The absence of Arab unity means that Iran has positioned itself as a strong defender of the Palestinian cause. It is taking on the Abraham Accords and the glaring omission of Palestinians. While these new designations could turn into a dangerous escalation, how the Arab world will look at it is still not known. Our correspondent Jody Cohen getting us more.
Israeli authorities have long charged that the PFLP has taken millions of euros from civil society organizations to fund terror activities. However, Israel's current coalition government is the broadest and most inclusive in the country's history, with a razor-thin majority and no agreements between the parties on how to resolve the situation with the Palestinians. It remains to be seen if this latest move has the potential to offset the gains of the new government. This is Jody Cohen from Jerusalem for WION World is One.
WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.